Hello, animators and artists. Julia Schoel and Birgit Pollo Uhlig are the co-creators behind The Legend of Pipi, a SCAD thesis film which follows a raggedy little cat on a dangerous quest to rescue the Cat Kingdom's princess, who was kidnapped by a horrifying beast. The Legend of Pipi has been viewed 4.8 million times on YouTube since the short's debut in July, and we invited Julia and Polo onto our live stream to discuss the craft that went into the project from storyboards to production. So, Julia, Polo, welcome to the live stream.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for having us. We're so excited.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, can you start by introducing yourselves and describing your roles on The Legend of Pipi?
Yeah, so I'm Julia Schoel. I'm the creator and director of the film. But I had my hands in all parts of the film, as did Polo. I'm from Alabama, but for college I moved to Savannah, Georgia. And then after college I moved to LA, so that's where I am currently.
Yeah, my name is Birgit Uhlig, but all my friends here in the area call me Pollo for ease of pronunciation. I am from Germany. I grew up in Germany, spent my entire life in Germany, but then for college 3 years ago, I moved to California to study animation. And Jewel and I met on the production of Pipi, and I started out as a storyboard artist to help with some of the story, but then I slowly slipped into the role of the co-director as I started helping more and more in the film, and I too, especially towards the end, had my hands on pretty much every facet of production, from producing to actual animation.
All right, so let's get into it. And we'll start by discussing the visuals broadly. Um, what was the thought that went into this big grand tapestry that introduces the story?
All right, let me go to that on my. We have a whole section for that on my little slides.
Let's go.
So here, let me find it. All right, so the idea behind the tapestry is to create a sense of subversion off the bat. This was inspired by Kung Fu Panda. DreamWorks always has the most amazing movie openings, and I loved how they immediately subverted people's expectations and kind of set forth that motif in the film. And that was what I wanted to do with PP, as well as creating an instant hook and kind of introducing you to the time period through the medieval type tapestries. But I'll let Polo talk about that because she was the one who
made it.
Made it, yeah.
Yeah, I was. This is actually the first part of the film where I helped on it. This is where I started. I started out as just responsible for boarding the part of production that is the tapestry, and here is the actual animatic for the tapestry.
Yeah, this was all Polo. This was the first thing she did for the film.
Yeah, which is the general idea was just that we wanted to have an old medieval style tapestry that rolls out, and we have a cool 3D pan happening with different layers and all of that with very smooth motion graphics.
Yeah, everything, no cuts and shots, everything flows into each other.
Yeah, exactly. That was the whole idea behind it. And then we have this epic fight of the cool Pipicus.
Yeah, Pipicus.
Yeah, his name is Pipicus, of awesome Pipicus, slaying the three-headed dragon and holding them up, winning the princess. She gives him a smooch, and then it pans down to reveal what Pipi really is. The idea here is to kind of show Pipi's ego and his delusion with himself, to show you what he thinks he is and what he thinks he deserves versus what he actually is. And these were actually done by one of our friends who helped on the film, named Jess McGuinness. She did the initial color composition for every single one of the slides, which is what you see right now. And yeah, here, this was the first roughs. We had a friend named Sujin help us with the general design of each slides. I mainly did what I did was the storyboarding and then the directing on it, but every single part of it was handled by different individuals. So I had my own little group of tapestry people that I worked with very closely to get it to the point that it actually is at now. Here, these are the final slides on it. What we did was I ended up, after Jess's pass on the colors, I ended up redoing some of them and like going over them again just to add more atmosphere, add more flow, add more storytelling to it based off of what Jess provided.
Mostly drama.
Yeah, mostly drama. I very much upped the drama because I wanted it to feel as dramatic and intense as possible compared to what the film actually is going to be. So that to really push that subversion. The tapestry painting style was inspired by old medieval paintings with a lot of like those small intricate details that and like those repeating patterns that the old tapestries like medieval European times would have. But we also wanted to like make it feel more modern than that and more colorful and cartoony than that. So this is what we ended up coming up with, and that was actually a full team process because I had a vague idea of what I wanted it to look like. And then I had 3 different passes on the first slide here. The first slide is actually entirely painted by me. And I did that 3 or 4 different times, completely separately, completely overthrowing what I had, just to like try and figure out what style seems to work best and is easiest to replicate. And then as we moved forward, the individual painters and the artists, I actually encouraged them to put in some of their own creativity on like what kind of patterns to use, how to use the brush set that I gave them to create different patterns and stuff. So there was a lot of room for creativity there.
Yeah, they did amazing.
Yeah, they did amazing. Like it really came together with all of the artists. And then at the very end, the final sliding and everything was also done by me because I really wanted to make sure that the final composition was that all of the motion graphics were going to look as smooth as possible, as humanly possible in After Effects. So we had them done for the first pass of the film by our motion graphics artist, but because when we first submitted the film to SCAD, we had to rush a lot to get these things done. And then for the final submission to YouTube, I ended up redoing that part to match it very closely to the boards. And yeah, that is the final product of it. And yeah. I also did the character animation on the 3-headed dragon, and because slaying the 3-headed dragon was a big challenge of making him come from the tapestry out into the presence to slay the dragons. And I don't think we have a slide for that, but that's fine. And that was especially like a compositing struggle, but yeah.
So there's this big grand tapestry, and it's contrasted with the next scene where you meet the scraggly little cat.
Exactly.
Yep.
We wanted to build that contrast as much as possible.
Yeah, even like with the art direction, I think you have where's the back? You have the background somewhere.
Yeah,
because if you compare just like the feeling of the tapestry and the feeling of the grand castle here to the interior, like see how like this still feels dramatic, but it feels more soft, more inviting, more warm. And before that, the shots you see are very gruesome, scary, high contrast, evil dragon. So I kind of wanted to push like the feeling there too with the contrast between them.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Pipi's character design, because in a lot of media where you see cats are these sort of graceful, dignified beings, and Pipi is a very different type of cat.
Yeah, so like to me, cats are not graceful. There's nothing graceful about cats. They're like silly, goofy. If you own a cat, you know they're not graceful. They make weird expressions, and they're very their moods are very much like a light switch. Like you can pet them, and they're being sweet and nice, and then you touch their stomach, and they like attack you, and you're their number one enemy. And I really wanted to capture that energy with Pipi. So he actually. Like this first design right here, this was just me being in a call with friends, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna play D&D in like 5 minutes, so make a character really quick." And this just popped out, which is his origin story. Little did I know that would change the trajectory of my life forever. But as we decided to develop a film, I had to take this design, and we had to find out a way to simplify it and streamline it for the animators, because this first design would not be easy for a lot of people to come on and just immediately animate. He's got a lot of line mileage, not like super slow shape language. So that is also where Pollo came in, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I think that was like the second thing that I helped on aside from the boards was Julia came to visit in California when she still lived in Savannah, and we all hung out at a friend's house to work together, and Jewel and I were literally just all day, we were sitting next to each other working on Pipi, like we really bounced off of each other. And I remember that being also like one of our first bonding experiences, because we both like had so much fun like talking about his design and talking about his shape language and stuff. And that's where I came in, because I ended up making his design a lot more cartoony, a lot rounder, a lot more easy to turn around and
you like turned into a marketable plushie.
Yeah, he very much immediately turned into a marketable plushie, because I just wanted to make sure for ease of production to make him look. So you can see pretty clearly, like here he just has like big like general shapes that are all repeating, so that people when they animate him could pretty much just use these shapes and like move them around so that it can like all the time stay consistent. We removed some of the details, like the little like circles on his skirt and his shoulder plates, just things like that to make it just a little bit easier to.
Something I want to add that something I was very valuable I learned from that experience was just that like Pollo added this light gray into the chest plate, because when you look at it with like blurred eyes, it's so much easier to see the silhouette of his face against his chest when he has the light gray. And for me, like I've been so used to seeing people with the dark gray, I was like, that looks odd, that looks so weird. But now it works so well. It's very like that kind of design language was a very valuable learning aspect while developing him.
And it also goes back to the 12 principles of animation, where you have solid drawing volumes to understand how characters are structured. So I think that's a really great use of a character design.
Yeah, like if we were to go with this first design of Pipi, it would have, like, I don't know another word to describe this other than like a Newgrounds feel, where like they can change and be off model for the sake of humor, which is something I like. But when you're working on a big team and trying to make one cohesive product, it is very hard to quality control and make things feel cohesive unless you have a character that has like structure and a way that it can turn around so people can understand it using logic, instead of just the principle of appeal.
Is there anything else that we want to talk about Pipi's character design right now?
Let's see.
I think mainly just that I remember when I was talking to Jewel, Pipi started out as like a lanky, long, scrungly thing. And I remember when I talked to her and she explained the story to me, I was the one saying, we should make him very, very round and very small and very cute, just so that people are actually really shocked when he ends up being very mean.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where his direction went. Like you see in the 3 passes here, how he went cuter and cuter and smaller and smaller. That was the idea behind it.
Yeah, just to even further push that subversion.
Yeah. And there's some challenging aspects to it, this character design, where you have like asymmetry, where you have the bandaged leg and the armored leg and the notch in one ear. Those are things that can always be challenging in a production.
Oh yeah, I don't honestly haven't gone through and seen if like his ear notch switches. We had to like very consistently try to like quality control that and make sure that didn't happen. I'm sure somewhere he's
I mean, alone, like in the first, like, I don't know if it's like here somewhere, but we have like the sheet with his poses, his pose sheet.
Hold on, I have that.
Yeah, we have the sheet where I drew out his poses and different expressions, because Jewel asked me to make, after I did the newest like turnaround, asked me to show some of his expressions. And in that sheet alone, I switch it up all the time, because while I'm drawing, I flip my drawings back and forth. And then in order to compose them all into one sheet like this, I ended up switching them around and flipping them around. So it's super inconsistent which side his ear notch is on and which one it isn't. Like, yeah, like the one where he's face planting, the ear notch is on the wrong side. The knee is on the wrong side. Actually, I tried to get it here. Yeah, there's like some inconsistencies, even in like this official sheet.
So yeah, the asymmetry is important in character design, but it's also difficult in a production.
Especially if you rely on flipping your canvas 30 times while sketching.
Yeah.
Another question I had was with the pupils. So Pipi is a character who has these really big, black, round pupils. What was your intention with the sort of expression that he's giving?
I wanted to give him a sort of bleakness. That's I think I did this cat internet cat hadn't been around when I first started it, but it's a perfect example of it. If anybody knows Jinx the cat, just that like kind of void and that feel of emptiness, I felt would help add to Pipi. Just not, it would help make it believable that he doesn't understand what's truly going on around him. Because like when he's confronting the king, when he's confronting the demon, he does not have an actual reaction to it. He's completely oblivious to the danger. And if we gave him a more present like personality or look to him, it might feel odd that he doesn't react to it the way he should. So we just really wanted to make him feel airheaded. And that was kind of the intention of giving him big
And
unfocused
also,
pupils.
you know, like when you see a cat and they have like their small, because cats have slit pupils, they look too serious and too scary. So we wanted to make Pipi look like he's constantly in the dark with his pupils all the way dilated, and also a little playful, because you know when cats are all playful, their pupils are huge. So that is also where that came from.
Yeah, I'm trying to find like, I don't know if I would find it, but at some point in production, we were doing cleanup and somebody accidentally like filled his eye color wrong and he looked so demonic. Where is it?
Yeah, when he has like, or even with smaller pupils, he looks like a different character.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'll just pull it up if I do find it.
So we're talking about the character of Pipi. We're talking about juxtaposing the tapestries with the character. How would you describe the storyboarding process behind Legend of Pipi?
Oh boy, so I learned a lot the storyboarding process because for me that was probably the most I started like for the first like month or two I was doing that alone, and I'd never boarded a comprehensive story before. I had only boarded little like segments of scenes and stuff like that through like classes. I did all the boarding in Harmony because I knew the board needed to be done quick and it needed to be efficient, and I could just work fastest in Harmony. So instead of going with like Storyboard Pro, I just did every scene there, which worked out because I also knew how to use the cameras best in that at the time. And if I could tell anybody making a film anything, or if I could go back and tell myself anything, it'd be to do the whole first rough of your pass with like stick figures. Like, don't try to make it impressive. Don't try to make good drawings.
Yeah.
Just try to get the like staging and the ideas there, because the Pipi board graveyard is massive. Like, there's so many like fully realized drawings and segments that I just had to trash because the story didn't work, and that's the most important part to keep in mind when you're boarding, not the drawings. You don't have to have good drawings for a storyboard, which I wish I could go back in time and tell myself. But that was a huge learning curve for me. We actually had we had a deadline for the boards, and after getting everything, all the boards together, watching the whole film, I realized that all of Act 2, like the pacing just was not working. It just kind of felt, instead of the whole film feeling cohesive, it kind of felt segmented because of the pacing of Act 2. So a week before the deadline, I completely scrapped it, and me and Pollo and my friend Yusuf, like just for a week, worked all night just redoing the entire thing. Because what had happened is we found a really good temp song for it. It was like a SpongeBob song for the storyboard, and we were like, the BPMs of this, like the energy is exactly what we need for the pacing. So we scrapped everything and we boarded it out to the song, like the temp song, and then our composer, or later when our composer came in, Brian Tiok, I think is how you say his last name. I should double check that, but he's amazing, by the way. He just blew everything out of the water. But we were like, okay, you need to match the exact BPM of this SpongeBob song, and he did, and like everything worked out. But that's how we ended up getting the pacing to work, is that we found a song with the pacing and we boarded to the beats of that song.
Yeah, I remember we had 3 passes on that Act 2, and then our friend Yusuf did the first rough pass of it to like who he designed like the first like the general idea of what's supposed to happen action wise, and then I went over it and cleaned up all of the boards and redid them to match the music and to give Pipi like all of the like acting that you see in Act 2, where he like reacts to the princesses and all that, and like reacts to everything. I wanted to make him like super expressive there and follow the beat, and Yeah, that was like I think that was still like in the beginning when I first came in and started
Mhm.
helping, and I was I gave Pipi like a bunch of little actions and all that.
Yeah, Pollo had a lot of personality to Pipi. When I first started out, my kind of idea for him was just to kind of be a very like static character, not super responsive, just very blank. But she made him like angry and passive aggressive and just kind of like
Yeah,
a
like
little
I
punk.
said, I wanted the to push the contrast between him being like looking like the cute marketable plushie to being like a little like just mean.
Little gremlin,
Yeah, like a little like mean gremlin. Like
Which is how cats kind of are.
exactly,
they're
yeah.
selfish.
And I think I love that character trope. I think like characters that are just like needlessly mean, even though they have no right to be, or like needlessly like egocentric, even though they have no ground to stand on it. That makes me laugh so much. It's one of my favorite tropes, which is why I started making that bleed into Pipi.
Yeah.
So I saw a really good question in the chat. Zoe Marson is asking, was there anything cut from the board's original script that you wish you had more time, or if you had more time, you would have kept?
That's a good question. Also, hi Zoe. Zoe's one of our background artists.
She was like the creative, like
she was like one of our background leads.
yeah.
That's a good question though. I did have some. Originally, I wanted to work more of the Pipi kiss stuff in throughout the film, like kind of as Pipi imagining how he would approach situations versus how he actually does. We had to cut that, and I think it ended up working that we cut that. I don't think that was super necessary. I think everything we cut was necessary, and there's not really anything that we didn't keep in that I felt like, oh man, it would have plus the film so much if we kept this in. I think story in the process of creating a storyboard is a lot of like rejecting the not like super necessary ideas and kind of taking off the rose tinted glasses and being like, okay, this is what will be possible down the line. Because when you're boarding, you can think of the most ambitious stuff, but later on, when you think about the like animation pipeline, the deadlines, you have to approach it a bit more realistic and cut some corners. So there's nothing I regret taking out, but there are some things like that sure might have like plussed some of the visuals. But for the time frame we had, I'm good with everything we kept.
Yeah, I'm so happy with everything that it like with how everything came out in the end, because the film is almost 10 minutes long. I don't think like we didn't really like skimp out on anything, especially just because it is so long. We really like just kept everything that we wanted in. We left it in.
Speaking of which, for the people here who are looking to make a film, I wanted to say one of the general rules with making a film and making it achievable realistically is to have as little settings as possible. So don't do what we did.
Don't do 12 settings.
These are all different settings. We had to think about like these all have to have different colored scripts, which big thanks again to Jessica McGinnis for helping us with those color scripts. She's the one who did this huge panning background painting. But we had so many ambitious settings. It is, yeah. And the background team absolutely killed it. Like I still can't believe how good these backgrounds came out. So much talent. But all of these different settings we had to like do different color scripts. We had to make sure they were distinctive and readable. That was a huge part of it, is to make sure when the characters are in the scene, you can see the characters. And since that's the most important part, the characters have to be the most visible. Like all of these panning shots were ridiculously ambitious. Like, especially like if you zoom into this one, it's like a Where's Waldo. Like you can see all the buildings, and that was Charles Kugler, who was one of our layout artists who did the lines for this, and just like plus it by 1,000,000 compared to my idea for it. But yeah, just don't put 12 different settings in your film like we did. That took a lot of time and a lot of hours from a lot of people. I don't regret it. I'm super proud of all the backgrounds everybody did, but yeah, heed my warnings with that. It'll take a lot of time.
So a little bit earlier on, you mentioned that there were different acts in your film. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the different acts in the film were and how you developed them?
Yeah, so we had the first act was us introducing the conflict and the world. I knew that with the first act, I wanted to really hook people within the first couple seconds of the film and also create that subversion, since that was going to be kind of a motif, a theme of the film throughout. So the first act was the easiest for me because that one had the most like structured rules. Like, oh, we have to introduce the characters, we have to introduce the world and the conflict. The second act was blank in my head. I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know all the little pieces I needed for it. I knew I wanted like a quick paced montage. I didn't know what to do for the gags yet. I just had a broad concept. Act 3 was another easy one for me. I knew how I wanted the film to resolve. It had some, I struggled a bit with it because the original film had a different resolution, and the dragon was not a huge part of it. Originally, I was going to make the third act of the film kind of like the peak conflict be like just Pipi trying to traverse up the castle with like avoiding different booby traps and all this kind of like slapstick stuff. But in the end, we ended up making the dragon the big like centerpiece, the final part of the film, and that wasn't too difficult. Act 2 was a nightmare for me at first. Like, it was so board driven, and I didn't know exactly how to approach the pacing. So I had my friend Dominic Romano come in, and he came up with all of the base gags and worked out kind of like the settings for those. And then later, Yusuf and Pollo had to fix the pacing because we kind of when I boarded Act 2 with Dominic, we weren't doing it with the other two acts before and after it. We were doing it kind of in a void. And once we put that in, we were like, oh, we did this in a void, so we didn't notice the pacing was a little off. So then we just fixed the pacing a little bit.
And added all those character acting bits and stuff and all those little gags. Yeah, the gags were mainly Yusuf. Yusuf did a great job with like the silly little gags. It was really funny. And it gave me a lot of room to play with when I went over it again and started giving Pipi all the funny, evil personality that he has now.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about some of the moments where that personality comes out? Do you want to talk a little bit about some of those gags?
Yeah, so
the first one is the slap.
Yeah, first one's a slap, and that one's funny because originally I just had like my idea was just to have Pipi like step over her, and then a professor who saw it, John Weber, was like, you need to like punch up this to like really make it read that Pipi is disregarding her. So I like boarded a slap, but when me and Yusuf were editing the timing, we accidentally like cut the clip way too close together, and it made the slap turn from like 5 frames to 1 frame. So it was just like immediate, and that made us laugh so hard. So that's actually where like that really quick slap came from. Like it was just a boarding accident, but we thought that was so funny.
The next one, God, I'm not trying to mentally go through the film. First, okay, actually, I think the first one is where he has the princess. He has the princess posters talking to the king, but without even listening to the king, he just leaves.
Yeah, and that actually was so throughout the film, Pipi is holding up a poster to compare the crowns because he's not aware enough he doesn't have like very good facial recognition, so he just uses the crown on the poster to compare the princesses. And in that first scene, when he's talking to the king, he's actually just comparing the crowns, and he realizes that's not the princess, so he leaves. He's not even like listening at all to what the king is saying. But after that, a lot of those little moments came in when Pollo was boarding the montage.
Because I was kind of,
I can find that really quick.
I put my little like soft spot for main characters in that with him. Like every time, like he didn't find the right princess, he would see that she's in trouble, but not even recognize that there's like someone in danger. Like absolutely no empathy. He just leaves. And so like in that one, our friend Abby, who animated the shot with the giant snake, Abby actually added in a little sigh and groan. He like rolls his eyes and turns around. And then what else? And the mole princess and the whole, he just looks at it, he sees that the princess isn't the right one, and then he lets the princess burn up into a crisp.
Yeah, here, I've got the animatic that I can show the...
Oh yeah, the Act 2 and... Yeah, here.
Yeah, so these are the parts that Pollo boarded and added some little snarky personality into.
Yeah, these are great.
Yeah, these are amazing. Killed it with these.
Thanks.
Yeah, so originally it was just him getting angry and walking out, but our animator Abby Snyder plussed it more by giving him like an annoyed little groan.
Yeah, like eye roll. And then
this was a big part where his personality came through too.
where he commands the demon.
Compares? No.
No. And he gets angry and walks off. Which is because, like, when I was talking to Pollo about the scene, I thought he would just kind of like blankly walk away, but she added this
angry.
Little
yeah, I also added the bit where he points at the demon to do what he did, because I remember like bordering these and just being like, this would be so funny if he did this, and I did that with every single like moment I could.
And then for this one, it's a little less pessimism and more just like
here, like the mood goes up a little bit again.
Yeah, you're just like, all right, this is it. Just
he's like, this is not it again. Yeah, but here we actually had it matched to the SpongeBob montage music that
yeah,
we
I wonder if
this
has the SpongeBob music I was talking about. Let me check. Oh yeah, there we go.
Hopefully I'm not sure if that comes through.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, it probably just doesn't come through.
Oh well. Well, you can imagine it.
Yeah.
SpongeBob music. All right.
You know, even that first gag of Pipi walking off as the king's talking to him, it kind of reminds me of like when a friend of mine's playing a video game and there's like a character giving exposition. He's like, no, I'm bored. I'm going to walk away.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and for that, we had to, that was another thing actually. Let me see if I can pull it up. We had to keep this King segments really brief because he is a very complicated character to animate and clean. Like his cleanup sheet was insane. So I wanted to find ways to like cut his scene short, and that it just honestly worked out perfectly that way. But here, let me check our files, see if I can find that guy. Right, yeah.
Oh
so this was his
insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had all these different like lines and stuff, like the colored lines and bits. Yeah. The cleanup them wasn't crazy.
Yeah, so that's another thing to keep in mind when you're like boarding a film is if you know you have these ambitious, hard to animate and clean up characters, try to keep them to a minimum.
Which we didn't.
We did with him. He has like 3 shots.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So speaking of character designs, which of the creatures or character designs did you find was the most interesting and rewarding to work on?
So for me, I think that would be both the Minotaur and the dragon. So for, this like film was very indulgent for me. I love cats and dragons. Like all my friends know that's like my thing, and I just made a film about cats and dragons because I wanted to draw that. I didn't want to spend a year animating and drawing something that I didn't think was fun. So being able to design the dragon was just very self-indulgent for me. I wanted to make her feel kind of like a chicken. And I was also looking at like those funky little greyhounds, like Jenna Marbles' dogs, and trying to get that like blank feel from them too. So
wrinkly faces.
Yeah, she started out. Looking. Yeah, exactly. She started out like this, which has a lot of line mileage, just not very friendly to animators. And that was originally because she had a very small part in this film. Like she was just going to be sitting in the room with the crown and the blood on her face, and that's how Pipi would recognize she was like dead and just the princess was dead and leave. But later it developed into Pipi misconstruing her for the princess with like the thinking the blood is lipstick. and having the crown of the princess on, since he's only using that poster to compare the crowns to see if the princess is. So she got a much bigger part of the film later on, and I redesigned her to give her a bit more structure so that people could understand how to like move her in space. But she was still a very difficult character for people to draw, understandably, because like when you have so little time to get familiar with the character and they're have this much line mileage, it takes a while to be able to draw them on model. So I went in and keyed most of the shots of the dragon just to make sure everything was feeling consistent. But she was just the most fun for me because she was the most indulgent. I really wanted to make a big kind of like heavy lumbering alligator type creature. And I really enjoyed doing that. But other than that, the Minotaur also was really fun for me. Oh, wait, he's right there. That's convenient.
No. Yeah.
The Minotaur was really fun. And it was interesting to explore because we actually did a 3D skull for the Minotaur. But in the beginning, I didn't know how to animate in 3D. I knew how to use Blender, but I didn't know how to go about like animating his rig. So I actually, this was like the first shot I had tested out for Pipi. This was like the first ever finished shot, and it changed a lot. This is like an old background. But for this, we had brought with my 3D modeler, created a 3D model of the skull, and then I animated the rough and toon boom. And then instead of animating the skull in Blender, we got a transparent PNG sequence turnaround, and I imported every frame of that turnaround into Toon Boom and kind of treated it like almost like a puppet. Like I used the library, the substitution library, to swatch out different head views of the 3D model. So this is like this 3D turn in space with 3D model is all just like me swatching images in Toon Boom. And it worked really well.
Wild.
Yeah, like I got the idea from Felix Colgrave actually, because I was following his Patreon at the time, and he was doing that in Flash, because he also didn't similarly just didn't want to have to learn animating in a new program like Blender, like I didn't either. So he found a workaround where he could just do that in Flash, and I tried that out with Toon Boom, and it worked out great. So that was really fun. For the rest of the film, we had 3D animators, so for other shots, we could do Blender animation. But for me, being too stubborn to learn it, this worked out really well. Yeah. But yeah, the Minotaur was really fun. Another indulgent character. Just kind of came out really quick, and I was like, yep, that's the design, just because I thought it'd be fun. But what about you, Pollo?
For me, it was, okay, so my whole thing is just creature design in general. I love designing different creatures, playing with the funny shapes they can have, and just like exploring what kind of shapes like communicate what kind of personality. So first, before I'm talking about Pipi, because I'm actually going to talk about the characters that I did for the montage.
I don't think they're in here.
They're not in here. This is so
yeah,
sad.
we can pull
So
Imaginations.
yeah,
yeah.
We just assume everyone has seen the film and knows it as well as we do. So I designed all the little, very offhandedly. I had to design them very quickly because we just didn't have a character designer on them, and I boarded it out. So I figured, okay, I might as well just do it because I know the intention of the scene best. Sorry, I'm watching Joel trying to find the file. And I think I had the most fun designing.
Here we go.
Here it is. So the demon character was actually initially designed by Dominic, who we were talking about earlier.
That was Yusuf.
Oh, that was Yusuf? I thought, okay, never mind, it was Yusuf. Yusuf designed the demon guy, and then when I redrew it, I went over it and tried to like push his scariness. I just gave him like these huge, plentiful, sharp teeth, giant, scary eyes. Jewel and I were like going back and forth on how to color him, and we settled on making him all black and just giving him glowing red lines to make him look like as comedically scary as possible. Like I really had a lot of fun like making his expression insane and like scary. And then the moment Pipi like points, he looks all like neutral and like friendly. But then he turns to the rat and he goes.
Friendly is a generous word for him.
He gets even scarier when he turns to the rat. So I had a lot of fun with that. This character was a lot of fun for me to draw.
Again, self-indulgent. Like we just did what we
yeah,
thought.
I love just pushing his expressions to like absolute like stupidity when I can. I don't do it that very often, but here it was like I definitely had a lot of fun with that. Same with like the rat, like when the rat is being dragged in, you see the face here. Like I love doing that. It was so much fun. And same with like the shape of the rat. Like it's just a triangle to kind of push the evilness. And it's actually a lady. She is
Lady rat. Yeah,
she's
we
a
gave
lady.
her eyelashes later on.
Yeah, here when you see her being squeezed. Here, let's see if I can find the single frame. Oh, no.
There.
Yeah, here you can see it.
Hardly see
You
it.
can hardly see it, but she has little eyelashes because it's a lady rat. And we thought it was funny to make all the characters that are like being slapped away by Pipi, they're all female.
Yeah, we wanted to we were like, let's just make all the characters like Pipi screws over female to really like
to kind of get
he's really failing at being a knight in shining armor.
He really is.
Like saving princesses and stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't save anyone. No girls were saved in this movie. I also like the chameleon. The chameleon was actually designed by Dom initially, and then I had a lot of fun going off of his design to, I don't know, give her that magical vibe, because I like the chameleon for this scene because it's like enchanted. It's like we have like a wizard, like a sorcerer there, and then the chameleon feels just like magical enough to fit in there. And that's kind of something I like to keep in the back of my head to see what kind of character would fit into the scene. I love this kind of analytical thinking when it comes to these things. And then the same with the spider. The spider was awesome. I love drawing the spider and the mole. I don't usually draw like these kinds of like designs, but it was really fun like branching out and like trying different things. And I wanted to draw a spider that is scary like a spider, but people who have like a horrible phobia of spiders don't lose it when they see it. So this is like a nice in between with like the cute little spider paws and stuff, and still trying to make it scary and ominous with the red glowing eyes. And then the mole princess was fun too, because they're just all these different shapes and characters. And then the other thing that I got to do was I redesigned Pipicus, because his shots were actually the ones that we did the very last. This was his original design, which was awesome. I love this design. This was the design I also used in the boards, but when we had to get the film done and it was my turn to do the character animation.
We had like 3 days left.
We had 3 days. I had
three shots started.
Yeah, I had 3 days to finish his shots, and it was the whole like sequence of Pipicus jumping off the tapestry, doing a little somersault, and then slaying the 3-headed dragon. That was a lot to animate in 3 days, and I went to Jewel and I was like, I can't draw it. This has so much line mileage. I cannot track all of that. I am so sorry. So I simplified it a lot. I also like made it more shapy and more graphic to at least like try to like match it into the tapestry. I think looking back, I probably could have put a little more thought into it, but we really were like short on time. So
this was in one scene, so
yeah, exactly.
We weren't too worried.
This is what I came up with his design, which was a lot of shapes that flow into each other for sake of clarity and communication. I ended up making his cape transparent because I did so much character animation on his back, which would have all been hidden by his cape. So I refused to like have that be lost, and I made his cape have a little fade in the final comp. And yeah, this character was also a lot of fun to work on because it's very big, broad, heroic shapes.
Yeah, I think that's like, and what you just talked about is kind of was a pattern with this film. Like, I would come up with these ideas and concepts, and you would come in and rationalize them and streamline them.
Yeah, and make
that was kind of
work in context. Yeah, because you would
name for this film.
Yeah, you had like awesome brainstorming ideas, and then I would be like, but maybe we can like do this to like fit it into the film really well.
Yeah, you were like, she was always my anchor for making this film like achievable, which was very essential.
I wanted to ask before we run out of time, how do you describe the film's animation pipeline, and what kind of guidance did you give to other artists working on the project?
All right, so we brought in our most difficult shot to show our pipeline in harmony. Let me see. All right, so it was this blaster shot, and all the rest were done by Pollo. I'll go through the roughs first, and then I'll show how we approach cleanup.
Do you want me to do that, or?
Oh yeah, you can do that. Let me just turn off.
Yeah, I don't know how you set up this file.
Let me just turn off effects real quick.
All right.
All right. So first, we'll start by playing the rough.
Okay, so that it plays smooth.
All right.
Oh,
That's not the beginning shot, but this was difficult because there's so many zoom-ins and
so many characters.
The most zoomed in shot has to be the 1920 by 1080 resolution. So when it's zoomed out to show the whole thing, the canvas is massive.
Yeah, it's like 12,000 pixels or more, and it's huge.
So we actually had, I think we had 6 different people on the scene at the end for Pollo for cleanup, and then I think it was 4 people. Pollo for rough animation. I think it was 4 different people for cleanup, and then 1 person rough animating, effects animating. I'll go into the different steps of that, or you can go into the different steps of that, and I'll just move navigate the Toon Boom.
Yeah, this Toon Boom file was like when I was animating this. This was actually my first time doing rough animation in Toon Boom. So I figured it out really relatively quickly because the controls on Toon Boom are very intuitive for me because I came from a Flash background, and I was actually thankful for how animator friendly Toon Boom is. The tool of being able to select singular lines and stuff saved me because I had to animate this 30+ second shot with 4 characters. No, is it 4? Yes, 4 characters. Yeah. No. Yes, it's 4. Yeah. With 4 characters in under 3 weeks, and that alongside full-time school. So yeah, the tools in Toon Boom really made it achievable. I don't think I would have not been able to do that quickly in any of my other animation software. And I just started out by doing the rough, the keyframes. At first I did a super rough pass for everything, which kind of already was the animatic that I did because the animatic was already keyframed pretty much. And then I just went in and drew the keyframes, which you can see this one, for example, it has a little K next to it and it has some black outlines. So tidy it up. And then I just went from there. I did it character by character. I think the first one that I animated was Pipi. I did all the roughs for Pipi. Then I did the rat. Then I did the princess, and then I did the demon.
And that reflects our whole process. So we would always have our animators start out with keys and send the keys in before they can move on with in-betweens. That way we could catch any model errors or any staging errors or anything like that before there's a bunch of more drawings added.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked out really well for us. And then they would send in their first passive in-betweens.
They usually breakdowns too.
Breakdowns, yeah. We do keys and breakdowns if it was really needed. Because the breakdowns would help inform how the animator was planning on getting from one pose A to pose B. And if we found something wasn't working, we could quickly give a note for that.
But yeah, here I think for the style, I think here we can also talk some about the style because Pipi's animation in the film goes from very fluid, all on twos to very choppy and comedic and fast paced. You can see that with the demon here. I drew the demon only 3 or 4 times fully, and then I kind of just moved stuff around and made him super snappy. Him screaming, that's just 2 frames. That's just him moving up and down. And then him slapping the princess. I think I only drew the hand pose up and in between, and then the slapping pose where he smashes the rat. And then from there I just morphed stuff around a bunch to save on time and also kind of push the comedy. You see how quickly he comes out. That's just 2 drawings.
Yeah. So another thing with this, this was one of our most complex shots, mainly because of cleanup. There's so many characters, and we had so little time, so we had to get 4 people on at a time. And when you're working with a character that is this big and a character that is
it had a lot of staging, like
that is
problems
this
we had
big,
to fix. Yeah.
then sometimes when multiple animators are working on multiple like different computers and different harmony files, the line width will vary, and they won't, when you put them together, they won't cohesive. So something that we found was super essential and super helpful is that if you line somebody with a pencil tool, you can just go in later and manually edit the line width of the character. So if the lines were too thick from somebody's file, we could just go in and select all of them and make them thinner, which was so incredibly helpful. Because the brush that I designed for this film kind of had a lot of variation between people's tablets. We weren't sure why, but it's just their pressure sensitivities for whatever tablet they had. So being able to go and like quality control that line width was amazing. Also, just, that's not a great example, but yeah, just being able to like so easily control the lines. That was very important for us.
It's one of the benefits of using the pencil tool for doing outlines and characters instead of the brush tool, is it gives you a little bit more flexibility to adjust things afterwards.
I agree. I would say for people making a film in Toon Boom, do your line work with the pencil tool. The brush tool is pencil, I use the brush tool a lot for rough animation because I find it has more of that bitmap like feel I'm used to when drawing on paper. But another reason to use the pencil tool is that it has less like information for the program to have to process. It makes your files lighter. So it's just very convenient when you're working with these massive files. Like the fact that this can even play is kind of a miracle.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
This has a lot of information. Like just look at all this effects stuff. It's a lot of. Speaking of effects, let me turn that on too. This effects were done by the demon was cleaned up by Ollie Smallwood. He also did the chameleon, which is a fantastic job. Pipi is cleaned up by Janessa Elde, and for some reason I can't get Pipi to turn on right now. I'll try again in a sec. He's working this morning, but I don't know what happened there. I can get a sword though. But then for effects was Marlo White, and they absolutely killed it with the shot. Let's see. There was a lot of effects in this shot. All the candles. Lighting. I mean, like they also comped like their own like lighting in the shot too for the effects.
Yeah, because of the camera movements and stuff as well that could not have been done in After Effects.
Yeah, right now we have that through a render preview node. To keep the file size down, usually we just click on the render preview to actually see what that looks like. And there you can see the little glow that she added as well. But there were a ton of here. I'll just play it with when you can see the effects.
Yeah, from the zap to the smokes and the candlelight.
It's a very ambitious scene.
It is. It's one of those where in the boarding process, we knew it would be a bit of a nightmare.
Which is why I was the one animating it, because I didn't want to do this to anyone.
Yeah. Pollo animated this in like, it's a close to a 40-second shot, including the parts after this. This doesn't have the chameleon blinking and Pipi walking away. But Pollo animated this in like 3 weeks, which is absolute insanity. But other than that, we also had the princess flyer, and here you see that her let's go over here. You don't see her face on this. That's not something we did in post. We actually did that in Toon Boom as well through the animation process, and all we did was we imported a flat PNG of her, and then we used, I believe it was the envelope tool. Let me double check that. Yeah, we applied these control points to it, and all we had to do is use these control points to morph and squash it around. And that's how we ended up animating it.
That's very clever.
It worked out really well.
So I can see that we're going a little bit over time. I wanted to ask you both briefly, do you have any advice for any other artists who are interested in creating their thesis films?
Yes. Some of my main bits of advice is to be decisive. That was a learning curve for me too. As a director, you're the one who's supposed to have the answers, and the questions will be incredibly specific. Like, oh, for this scene, what should the roughs look like to be cohesive with the background style, stuff like that. Like, you need to have an answer for that. And if you don't have an answer, it's great to have somebody you can talk to figure that out. Sometimes you won't always have the answer, but know what you want, so that you can direct people. If you can't decide on what you want, your film is not going to be cohesive. And other than that, it's really important to keep in mind that like the context of the production, like especially if it's a student film, people have classes, people have jobs, people have a life outside of the film. They're not getting paid for it. There's no like, you shouldn't expect them to have a very like inherent sense of obligation. Some people have more obligation than others, and that's fine. So you have to keep in mind that you can't like always expect like people to just drop everything for your film. Remember that people have lives.
And stay nice.
Yeah,
I think a big part was to constantly be enthusiastic, to not like I would never wanted to like make anyone feel bad about not being able to get anything done or not being able to be on time for something, because we do respect their time and their help so much. Like, we were so grateful for every help we could have gotten. So a lot of the things when people like couldn't finish something because they had other obligations, Jewel and I would like jump in and like finish it for them, because I feel like that's the least we can do in a setting like this, where it's unpaid work like this.
And something that I didn't anticipate was just how much social energy it takes to run a production, especially on the scale Pipi ended up being. So make sure you take time for yourself in these films. Like for me, like I spent all day on Discord answering like 20 DMs a day and in the server trying to help manage stuff. And big thanks to my producer, Brooke Heischman, and my co-producer, Zoe Mark Parkinson, because they helped me so much. But I like could not like answer like social Discord messages after that. Like I was just like, I can't even answer text. Like I just need to take this time for myself. And it's important to like know your limits with that kind of stuff. Because it's not, if you're making a film, it's not just the art part of it. There's the politics of the film. There's having to interact with a lot of different personalities and being really social.
And tons of problem solving. So much problem solving.
Yeah, so much problem solving. So keep that in mind. And in the beginning, you're going to be very ambitious. Like, don't be afraid to cut some corners and be realistic about what is actually achievable.
No, that's great advice. So I wanted to ask one last question, which is, where can our audience watch Legend of Pipi, and where can they find more of your work from around the web?
So they can watch Legend of Pipi on YouTube.
Just look up The Legend of Pipi.
Yeah, just type in Legend of Pipi. It's on my YouTube, Papa Julia. That's also what my Twitter and Instagram is. And then
my Instagram is Vupol, Vupol. My Twitter, DeviantArt, and pretty much anywhere else. Tumblr too is all Pollovy, which is Pollovy. And yeah, that's where you can find my work. And if you want to see my work on the film, for example, you can also check out my website, which is pollovy.art.
All right, well, thank you both for joining us for today's live stream, Julia and Polo. And if our audience enjoyed learning about Legend of Pipi, we have articles on 2 other thesis films produced by students in the SCAD animation program. We have an article with Andrew Stadler on Beacon and Nico Pilarczyk Tellez on The Pope's Dog. They're both excellent student films. And next week, we'll be hosting Collaboratory with Mike Morris and special guest artist Aaron Patz, so you won't want to miss it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to join us next time.